for Sara Duterte. But the race is a little bit narrowing, especially with margin of error of 3 to 5%. This could very much narrow down. So this is quite interesting. So we are in a stage dito sa ating demokrasya kung saan mukhang ang hinanap ng tao is no longer just, senators, national figures, and celebrities, or in these cases, scions of an established dynasty. I mean, specifically, I'm talking about Isko Moreno, who doesn't come from a political dynasty, At laking hirap talaga siya. He literally came from, from poverty, from the slums in Manila. But I think here nakita natin na people are looking for more and more executive prowess, yung executive capability. At kung titignan natin both Sara Duterte and Isko Moreno, of course, they also bring a lot of strengths to the table on their own, on their own terms, So, again, we're not endorsing anyone here. We're not also campaigning against anyone specifically here. So let's just do the objective analysis, or let's do it as objectively as we can, The thing is, naalala ko nung nasa Davao ako a few years back and talking to some of my academic friends, one of the things that I noticed there is that a lot of people were saying that Sara Duterte, yes, she shares her father's populist instincts. Of course, my similarity in terms of feisty, dynamic character, and there was a time that, of course, they both kind of were in the top two positions of Davao, but the differences also and the juxtaposition of their governance style also became quite clear. Mukhang while President Duterte is more instinctive, more top-down, more visceral in terms of the way he rules, very macho yung kanyang approach. Pagdating kay Sara Duterte, in contrast to her father, it seems her approach is more focused on consultation, a multi-stakeholders consultation, mukhang more collaboration with public policy experts. Again, this is from colleagues of mine who are not necessarily Duterte fans in Davao, were telling me that how Sara was open to hear their views, to get scientists, social scientists, to give input dun sa mga iba't ibang proyekto nila sa Davao. And of course, for a lot of us who have visited Davao, it is quite an impressive city in terms of overall management. Now, okay, of course, we're putting aside some very controversial and sensitive issues here, issues of human rights, drug war in Davao in the past, but that is a big topic in itself. But just overall, if you look at the governance approach of Sara Duterte, she's trained as a lawyer, she's relatively articulate, she has that presence and charisma, she has that decisive image, at mukhang, she appreciates public policy expertise, evidence-based public policy, and open din siya sa multi-stakeholder consultation. Nonetheless, of course, ang criticism against any Sara Duterte, candidacy for the presidency is that it's gonna be more like a referendum on her father, or a proxy vote for her father, or more or less a way to allow her father to have a de facto second term in office. So that's the big concern here. And of course, many would argue that would Sara Duterte have been even considered for this office at this stage in her career, if not, for being, potentially the anointed successor of her father, and all the advantages that come with, the home court advantage of being on the side of the incumbent, the machinery of the state, the popularity of the president, and all of those things, right? So, yan ang sinasabi ng mga critics. And I think that is where exactly Isko Moreno comes in the picture. Kasi ang argument ni Isko Moreno is that he is a self-made man. And Isko Moreno really spent a lot of time in the shadow of big personalities. And of course, the latest one was former president and former mayor of Manila, former president of the Philippines and mayor of Manila, Joseph Estrada, right? And being in the shadow of titans brings its own kind of bitter experiences and disappointments, but also creates a kind of a learning curve, bilang isang politiko. At kitang-kita natin yan, I think Isko really learned some huge lessons, from all of those years that he was in the shadow of these more senior people, senior seasoned politicians, the ultimate politicos. He doesn't come from a political dynasty. He came from real poverty, hindi lang pa-populist or pamasa, galing talaga siyang masa. So it instinctively really comes for him, this compassion. And I think, of course, there's mayor and then there's a mayor, and the fact that Isko Moreno is a mayor of a major city, of course Manila, which is an international city. I mean, this is where a lot of embassies are. The U.S. embassies there. This is where a lot of exposure to the international community. So, being a mayor of Manila is a much more international and national position than just being a mayor or head of a local government unit. No, so yun ang argument in favor of Isko Moreno, or this is the argument that his supporters make, that this is a different kind of job. No, and we have seen in different countries, in Korea and in Europe and all, mayors of big cities tend to run also, or capitals tend to run for the highest position, presidency or prime minister, and so on and so forth. Of course, in the case of Britain, Johnson was the mayor of London, as far as I remember. So, he kind of used that as a stepping stone to go first, becoming foreign secretary afterwards, and then, of course, eventually the prime minister of Britain. So this is, it seems, ito yung mukhang yung line, yung entry, yung momentum ni Isko Moreno. And of course, Isko Moreno also comes in the picture as kind of a new synthesis, no? So if President Duterte was a negation of dissente politics, I mean, our argument in President Duterte was that we need decisive, single-minded leaders, no, who can get things done, even if foul-mouthed sila, even if, they're not necessarily the most moral na person or dissenting person. You need to get things done, and that really appealed to a lot of people. And we see in many surveys like Pew surveys and world value surveys across the years, now mga Pilipino, they're willing to go for a decisive leader that gets things done, even though that means circumventing checks and balances and certain democratic practices, and in some cases even doing away with elections. So there's that kind of a nostalgia for an authoritarian leader, and I think President Duterte was able to tap into that. But given the many shortcomings of President Duterte, including the the relatively problematic management, or some would even say mismanagement, of the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, overall, if you look at the numbers in the Philippines, one of the steepest economic recessions in the world. And yes, there has been a spike in Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia and other countries, but the Philippines still, on a different league altogether, assuming, our numbers and everything is reliable. And I think that has provided some opening for a different kind of what I call, alternative populists, alt-populists like Isko Moreno to come in. So I'm pointing Isko Moreno is that I also have that kind of executive decisiveness. Meron din siyang populist appeal. I mean, it comes completely naturally to him given the circumstances, of his life. Compassion for the poor and the voiceless comes very easy and natural to him. At the same time, of course, we see in the case of Isko Moreno that he also believes in decent leadership. He is a pious man. He's a family man. He believes in moral ascendancy and moral leadership, and he believes in having a president who can not only get things done but can also serve as a role model for the younger generations. No, so I think this is where the strength of Isko Moreno comes in the picture. But nonetheless, he might be against a Duterte tandem, and the question that raises is who will be, if ever Isko Moreno runs for the presidency, which looks almost certain, who will be his vice presidential mate? Will it be someone